Isaiah 35:10. The people God has called back will return on this road. They will sing as they make their way home to Zion. Everlasting joy will be upon their heads. They shall obtain joy and gladness, and sorrow and sighing shall flee away. And then from Nehemiah, chapter 8, verses 8 through 10. So the leaders read from the book, from the law of God, to all the people with interpretation. They gave the sense so that the people understood the reading. And Nehemiah, who was the governor, and Ezra the priest and scribe, and the Levites who taught the people, said to the people, "This day is holy to God. Do not weep." For all the people wept when they heard the words of the law. And then he said to them, "Go your way and eat the fat and drink the sweet wine, and send portions of them to those who have nothing. For this day is holy to our God. And do not be grieved, for the joy of God is your strength." And finally from Hebrews 12, verse 2. Let us run with perseverance the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith, who for the sake of the joy that was set before him endured the cross, disregarding its shame, and has taken his seat at the right hand of the throne of God. Here ends the reading. Now, you know, Anne, I often think of you, one of my jokes, I mean, we're usually out here by the hour, you know. Not gonna lie, you know, I'm often joking about my messages going a little too long and the services taking a little too long. I don't know what we'd cut out, you know. So, but I often remember you saying years ago, you know, it's just possible, Bryan, that the sermon is not the most important part of the worship service, you know. And once again, she was right. I got a text on Friday from Andra Moran. Those of you here regularly know Andra. She's a singer-songwriter, Christian songwriter, been a friend of mine for about 20 years now, and she joins our morning Zoom. During the pandemic, she was often with us. She works in a church in Nashville, a pretty well-known Christian minister through her music. She has an 8-year-old daughter named Calla. She sent me this text on Friday. She said, "Yesterday, Calla was horsing around on the playground with a boy in her class who's smaller than she is. Playful punching and shoving, you know. But it escalated and got too rowdy, and the boy got mad and swung around and hit Calla and broke her glasses right on her little face. She has a mark on her face, but above all, she was mostly just embarrassed that both they got in trouble for fighting at school. When explaining the story to me, she said she and the boy actually have a lot in common, though, because his grandmother is a famous singer. And you're a famous singer, Mom," this Calla said to her mom. So I Googled the kid's family and found out that his grandmother is Lynn Anderson. You're so Nashville if your kid gets in a playground scuffle with the grandson of the woman who sang "I Never Promised You a Rose Garden." Remember that song? I beg your pardon, I never promised you a rose garden, along with the sunshine. There's gotta be a little rain sometimes. Well, it occurred to me that that song isn't a bad segue into my message today, because if we tweak it just a little bit and say that joy is in some ways, among other things, the sunshine after the rain. It's the sun finally breaking through the clouds again after a hard and difficult storm. It's the reappearing of something you thought you'd lost or was gone maybe forever. It's the cause for the party when the prodigal son finally comes home. It's the moment after the wild pain of transition and birthing when the mother, assuming everything went okay, takes that babe in her arms for the first time and brings it to her bosom or glances into its eyes and says without speaking, "You were worth it." Now, I can't even share that illustration without acknowledging that when Ann was in labor with our firstborn, Sam, it was 17 hours and it wasn't easy. And I, though, managed to take a nap at one point. Yeah, I haven't heard the end of that. You don't bring it up, but it gets brought up, yeah. It's a daunting thing to preach with your ex-wife in the congregation, I'm just saying. All right? In all of our scriptures today, the joy that is referred to comes after or in the shadow of a devastatingly difficult experience. I can't elaborate on any of them, but the Isaiah text talks about the people of Israel coming back to their homeland after they'd been defeated, occupied, and exiled for over 200 years. I'm sure they never thought they'd go home. But here they were on their way back home, singing joyfully. The Nehemiah text happens after the people of the nation hear the scriptures read for the first time in a long time. Evidently, they didn't have Bibles and printing presses the way we do, and it had been a long time since anyone had heard the scriptures read. And so they gathered together as a people and read them publicly. And the people are cut to the quick. And they realize for the first time, oh my God, we've been on the wrong side of history. We've lost our way. And they began to weep. And the leaders said, "Don't grieve. This is a great day. It's a fantastic thing when you wake up and realize, hey, we made a bad choice. Let's get back on track. Let's come home." That's a beautiful time. And then Nehemiah says, so don't be bummed out and wallow in grief. Instead, understand that joy, the joy of God, is your strength. It's deep. And then the Hebrews text. Jesus, who for the sake of the joy that was set before him, endured the cross. Joy before the cross? So here we have him looking at his own imminent torture and death. But joy, not happiness. And by the way, other texts show that Jesus was also afraid and sad. He was all human, felt it all. But here it says that he experienced joy because he knew that the end of his life was not the end of life. He knew that the journey would continue. He wasn't worried about that. And he knew that he was on a mission to put an end to the experience of human shame. And that's another sermon for another time. But he shows us that when you trust God with your future completely, then you can even know a joy that comes before the pain, that sees you through the pain all the way to the end because you know it's going to be okay. All of our endings are always a new beginning with and in God. God's holding all of this. There's a poem called Kindness by Naomi Shahib Nye. I'd read the whole thing to you if I had time. I don't. But the opening line says, before you know kindness, you must lose things. Feel the future dissolve in a moment, like salt in weakened broth. In order to know what joy is, you have to have first gone through some things. Some hard times. And then you realize that joy isn't just a good feeling or a happy mood. Joy is way more bad donkey than that. It's a form of resilience, maybe even defiance. It's a refusal to give fear and pain the last word. Or as Nehemiah put it, the joy of God is our strength. When you're joyful in the midst of difficult circumstances, you show that the love that flows from within you, and God is love, is stronger than anything and everything that feels like it's coming against you. That doesn't mean we pretend or bypass or deny our sadness. It means that we know that the sadness or the fearful circumstances are always temporary. But the oceanic love that is the source of the wave on which joy surfs is eternal. So finally, a few words from my new favorite poet, Shalon Harkin, from her book, The Prophetess. It says, "Speak to us of joy." And the prophetess spoke. "It's time we make a firm commitment to receive the resuscitation of our joy. The deepest hope of happiness is to need no reason for itself. But if you do need a reason, let it be because you have two hands that can hold another's soft face. Every bucket of your darkness is alchemized into wisdom simply by handing it to light." I'll end there. There's a shamanic teacher named Christina Pratt who says joy is the byproduct of an authentically lived life. This last week, somebody sent me a video, and it moved me to tears. And I was like, I got to show this in church.